All right, what's up, folks? Today is June. We're into June now. So today is June the 2nd, 2024. So this is going to be a fairly quick video. It's on a Sunday. We're just going to do a there we go. Okay. All right, so we're going to do a quick video. There was a question in the TradeStation forum. Somebody was asking about seeing. Well, you know what? I had some questions about it, and so I hadn't got a response back on the question as of yet. But we're just going to do this video here based on what I think the person was asking for. So we're going to go with ES, and the question went something like this. Let me see. Let me open up the development environment first, and then we're going to go to forms. Go to this, open up that, hit that, go here, and then we're going to start a new indicator. Actually, we're going to make it a show me. The gentleman can make it an indicator if he wants to. TSF, and then this will be high highs and lower lows. All that out of there. And so the question was, I'll see if I can copy and paste it. All right, so I'm not going to use the gentleman's code. I'm just going to make my own code, and hopefully from that he'll be able to grasp what he's missing. But I think the main thing that he's missing is the loop statements. Okay, all right, so this was the question. The question was, the intent was the code, was to find out if there is a, so the current bar, so is 0 bars back, 0 bars in the historical data, if there's a high greater than the high before it, and if there's a low greater than the low before it. So obviously we're moving up, right? During the last 5 bars. So within the last 5 bars, there's a couple ways that you can actually do this. And then so the second part of it says that the high, current high, is greater than the high before it, and the low is greater than the low before it. So that's if it's considered true if it occurs on the same bar or different bars. So that, I think that's also the part that I'm not really getting, because that's kind of like a factual statement. If it's higher than the one before it, then it's just higher than the one before it. There's no saying that it wasn't. So I'm not really understanding what this part is saying, but again, if the high is greater than the high before it and the low is greater than the low before it, it's considered true, because these are two different things is what I'm saying. The high condition and the low condition are two different things. Now, if you want them to be the same, if you want them to both be true and then your plot condition is true, then if they're both true on the same bar, so maybe what they're saying, if the highs, maybe that, okay, so this is what, now that I'm kind of reading it, rereading it again, I think this is what they're saying. That within the last 5 bars, it has to at least have one instance where the high is greater than the high before it, and one instance where the low is greater than the low before it, and that can be on that same bar, or it can occur on different bars. Just within the last 5 bars, that has to happen once. So let's make it like this. All right, this is back way too many days. That was back that, so we're gonna go back 10 days. We're just gonna put this on a 5-minute time frame. Let's see how many days back. 15 days. That's fine, but we're gonna do it 2 days. Okay, so I'm gonna come back here, and so again, we're looking for at least the high being greater than the high before it, and the low being greater than the low before it within the last 5 bars. Actually, with that, like in this range here, you have a high higher than the one before it, and you have a low lower, and you have a low greater than the one before it here, 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 here. So you're going to get a lot of instances. So again, I'm not sure. This seems like what the original poster is asking, but it may not be. So I'll do it this way, and then I'll maybe try to do a couple nuanced versions so we can just have a more comprehensive script. So using the first instance, we'll go one is condition 1, and then we'll just do con 2, which is condition 2, and we'll go con 3. Just give us a couple of conditions to work with. Let's use a couple of counters if we need them. XYZ. Okay, and so we're going to say, now this is much simpler than the original poster made it out to be. So they had a code something like this. Their code was this. They used a counter, and at the end of every bar, they added 1 to it, which is fine. And then if they did find that condition to be true, then they restarted the counter. Okay, so if they want to do it that way, then that gives me a little bit more insight into what they're wanting to do. So if we do find one of these to be true, what we're going to do is we're going to restart the counter so that this one also isn't true, and this one, and this one, and this one. Once we get one to be true, then we'll restart the counter. So we have to at least reach 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bars. We have to at least find another set of 5 before we start finding another true instance. Yeah, so I'm just going to mute all this, comment all this out, and then we'll do this. So we'll say, so we'll also use a counter. Counter is CTR plus equal 1. So if, and you can use the count if. For this version, you can use count if. Now, if you want to do it, there's different ways that you might want to do it. I mean, you can use a loop. And I think that's what he was wanting to do. So he was wanting to loop through the last 5 bars. So if we want to loop through the last bars, then yeah. So maybe I'll do it a different way, and then I'll go back and try to do it a loop way. Because if you want to do it a loop way, then I think he does have the right idea here, where if the counter is greater than or equal to 5, then you want to do this stuff, but it has to be a loop. This is not asking for a loop. So in here, you need to put your variable, and then have a loop statement. Okay, so like I said, initially it would look something like this. So counter plus 1, counter plus equal to 1. I'm going to say if counter is greater than or equal to 5, then begin. All right. All right, so counter plus equal to 1. If counter is greater than or equal to 5, then begin count if so. All right, I'm back. Okay, so if counter is greater than or equal to 5, then begin. If count if, let's see, because we're going to use an OR statement. So if count if, so in count if, it's going to ask you for two things. It's going to ask you for the test, and it's going to ask you for the length, right? So once you hit that test and the length, okay, so, and to find that, you just count if, and then you right click it. All right, so count if high of, how are we going to do this? Because if we didn't do the counter greater than or equal to 5, we could just say no, we can still do this. So if the counter is greater than or equal to 5, then begin count if high. If the current high, so the high is greater than the high of a bar ago, and that's going to be over 5 bars, and you can change that as an input if you want to. So input, we're going to put it equal to test length. We'll make that 5 initially, so we'll put this as 5 test length. We'll put if count if or pace low is greater than low of embargo test length or that, then con1 equals true. Okay, and what I typically would do here is, instead of putting else con1 equals false, because you won't always come into this functional statement, because con is not always going to be equal to 5. So pretty much what I'll do is at the beginning I'll say con1 is or at the end I'll say con1 is equal to false, and then we'll plot here in the middle. So we'll use the con1 as our plot, and that's fine, and then we'll reset that con1 criteria, as well as you know, because if this is true, then con1 equals true, as well as we also need to reset the counter also, right? So then begin, we're going to con1 equals true, and we're also going to counter equals 0. Okay. So, and then begin, end, then begin, end, if, then begin, and then we'll plot 1 equals slow. All right, red. Why don't you like that? Count if. High is greater than high if we want to go test length, or count if. Why don't you like that? Cannot implicitly convert numerical to true false. This is not giving us a numerical. This is giving us true false. Or I think it doesn't like the or here. Let me see if it'll let us put this in parentheses. No. All right, let's. Okay, so that wasn't it. Count if test length, and that must be true. Now, typically, I don't have any issues with this, right? I mean, see, it says the same thing here. Oh, that's right. Because in like when you're using, and that's the thing about using multiple platforms, using multiple languages, programming languages, and that kind of thing. Like when you're using Excel, Microsoft Excel, the count if version will return the number of times, and that's what this does too. So it doesn't return a true. I imagine there's a version that would let's see. I think there is a version that will say I'm just thinking if there's I feel like there is a version of a checking method where it will return just true if it happened within. Yeah, there is. Gosh, what is it? What is it? I used to use it all the time, and then I was able to. And then I learned how to use loops and everything. So now I kind of create my own loops, and I don't use that anymore. But there is a function that allows you to just put in your test, and it'll just return yes, it was true, or it occurred within so many bars, or something like that. Occurs within something like that. What is it? Occurs within data grid text and count. It's gonna be something with a count. So now I'm just kind of rambling, but count if. What is similar to count if? Count if function. Sometimes I'll put down here other things that are similar. Gosh, man, I used to use this all the time because I didn't know any other way to do it. And it was, it's a built-in reserved word, simple function, so it just made sense. Am I really just kind of reading through this? Yes, I am. Nth highest, nth extreme. Extremes. I can't find it. I'm going to try to find it. Meanwhile, let's come back here. So again, this is going to return a number. So it's going to be how many numbers. So we just need to know that this number is greater than or equal to 1, right? So if that's greater than or equal to 1, I've got to remember what that was, okay? Or if this is greater than or equal to 1, then begin, count 1 equal true. All right, that, so no issues. Now we're going to put TSF, HHA, TSF. Okay, all right, so this is where the occurrences happen, but why wasn't, see, but it's happening on every bar, right? So clearly the counter isn't being reset. So, and or it's not being reset. Let me make sure that this isn't, okay, that this isn't intrabar persist. Begin count 1 equal true. Counter is greater than or equal to 5, then begin. Easy. An amateur could have spotted this. All right, there we go. All right, so now you see that we do have what we're looking for. Again, so I just put, I was like, plot it on every single bar. No, you want to plot it only if condition 1 is equal to true, right? So now we only have a dot. We won't have a dot any fewer than 5 bars, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But within this last 5 bars, we did either get a higher high or a higher low. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. We did get either a higher high or a higher low within these 5. Now let's go and look at an instance where we're like in a bearish channel and we didn't get a higher high or higher low. All right, so here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Did we get a higher high or a higher low? Yes, we did. Here we got a higher low, right? And an equal high. But so if you're like, well, are we sure that this is working right? Well, this right here only showed up because we got a higher low. So what we're going to do now is, and actually this is going to throw off the counter the entire way, right? So this was the last bar, and then this bar started counter 1, 2, 3. But once I change this, we'll no longer have this one fire off because this one will not have fired off because this one will be off. But if we wanted to change this to or, if we want to change this to and, so within that, within those last 5 bars, when I think that's the way the guy wanted it in the first place, right? So, within the last 5 bars, this and this has happened. Okay, so, all right. But it didn't have to happen on the same bar. So here was our last bar. So we start off counter 1, 2, 3, 4, and then this is the 5th one. Yes, so here we did get a higher low, and we also on this bar got a higher high, right? So at this point, yes, within the last 5 bars, by the time we get to the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th counter, within these bars, we did get both a higher high and a higher low. Doesn't have to happen on the same bar, but it did happen. And then let's see. So through here, we didn't get anything to fire off. Here we did have a higher low, right? So this would have fired off normally, or if it was or, this one would have fired off because we got a higher low, one or the other. But because this also was not a higher high, it didn't fire off. So we got to come down, come down, come down. Now, yes, now we have a higher low and a higher high. So, and it's at least 5 bars from the counter being reset, right? So this one fires off, and then we come down here, and by this bar, within this 5-bar interval, yes, we had a higher low, and there was at least one bar with a higher high. All right, so now we're coming down here. And we're coming down here. No higher highs or higher lows. No higher highs or higher lows. No higher highs or higher lows. Here we have a higher low, but we don't have a higher high. But now by this bar, we did get our higher high. We already had our higher low right there. So now we got an entry there. Okay, so like I said, you know, this script is pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. And you know, so forth and so on. I'm trying to think, what else was I going to do? I mean, like I said, you could make it into a loop, but you wouldn't need to. If I was to make it into a loop, let me fumble through this. Let me fumble through a loop. Okay, so if I was to make it into a loop, I would go something like, so counter plus equal to 1. So we're going to add 1 to the counter each time. We do need to reset the counter at some point, but if the counter is greater than or equal to 5, if counter is greater than or equal to 5, then begin. So if the counter is greater than or equal to 5, we want to look back 5 bars and say, I mean, it's the same thing, but essentially that that count if is a loop, right? It's, I mean, let's look it up. So you right click it and you open the function, right? See, it's a loop. It's a for loop. So for this to this, we're going to do this. I mean, you know, so that's the loop. That's the shortcut for you. I mean, this is already the shortcut for you. So if I was to do it myself, it would be something like, if counter is greater than or equal to 5, then begin. For x equal 0, because in your historical spot, like he did here, and in your historical spot, you'll have 0, right? Because that's the current bar. So for x is equal to 0 to, instead of going to 5 though, we need to go to 4, because you're going to have, you're going to have the 0 index, or the 0 move, the 1, 2, 3, 4. So for x is equal to 0 to 4, then x is equal to 0 to 4, begin, and then we're going to do an end. I like to do these first, make sure you don't get them off. All right, and then you put in there what you want. So for x is equal to 0 to 4, we're actually going to have to do it twice, kind of like we did up here. There's 2 count ifs. We can't, only because they want to have a higher high or a higher low. They want to have both a higher high and a higher low, but not, it doesn't have to be on the same bar. So that's going to be two different programs, 2 different functions. So for x is 0 to 4, if high of x, which is the current bar, is greater than high of x plus 1, because you're counting in the future. So if you make this number here 3, then this is going to say 3 bars ago. So it's got to be a positive integer. So you're going to do x plus 1. So if high of x is greater than high of x a bar ago, then we'll say high, we'll call it HH, higher high equals true. Well, I would do it. This is the way I've done it more recently, right? Because the problem is if you get a true here, and you're only looking for it to happen one time, so this is why it's okay to do it this way. If you're looking for how many times it happened, you need to do a different loop. You need to do something different. But because you only need it to happen one time, once it does happen, you need to stop the loop. Because if you continue with the loop using the specific syntax that I'm about to put, then it would overwrite the true condition possibly with a false condition. So we're going to do a begin. So if the current high is greater than the high of a bar ago, then begin the high is equal to true, and also x is equal to 4, and that way we'll get out of this loop. Okay, and then we'll end with HH being true. Okay, so otherwise, if it's not equal to true and we don't have a 4 here, then it'll just continue on through the loop to the fourth iteration. Okay, and we got to do the same thing for the lows. For x is equal to 0 to 4, begin if low of x is greater than low of x plus 1, then begin lower low, higher low equal true, x equals 4, end. Okay, and now at this point, now that we've run our loops, and we have whether or not HH and HL, we have what their values are. Now we can say if HH equals true and HL equals true, which just means that you did get a higher high. You got at least a higher high within the last 5 bars, and you got a higher low within the last 5 bars. If that's true, if both those are true, so we got to use and, then plot 2 equals, then we'll say, yeah, we can just go ahead and plot it. Plot 2, we're going to plot the low. Actually, I tell you what, we're going to plot the high, so we can plot them both. So they'll be running essentially side by side, or at least on the same chart, and you can see what's what. So we'll plot the high, and then we'll plot that as blue. Okay, and then when we get to the end here, after we've used these, if both of them are true, then we need to reset the counter, because now that we have that true, that bar that's true, that iteration, that condition that we found is true, we want to restart everything. So if both of these are true, then not only are we going to plot this, but we're also going to reset the counter. We're going to reset the counter, and we're going to make sure that the higher high and higher low conditions are reset as well. Okay. Couple things. Begin, so we're going to plot it. We're going to reset the counter equal to 0. We're going to do counter 2 because I'm going to run both of these at the same time. Counter 2 is equal to 0, and then this is going to be counter 2, so that this up here can stay counter. And then we'll have a new variables. Counter 2 is equal to 0. We're going to have higher low is false, and higher high is false. Okay, and then I'm going to plot that, do that, and then also we reset counter to here. Also, at the beginning of every run, at the beginning of every bar, we're going to make sure that the higher low condition and the higher high condition are reset to false, because what we don't want to happen is this to come out of this loop as a true, this one have been a false, so this will not fire. But because this was still a true and this was a false, if we manage to come back around, I just don't want it to get confused with there having been a prior higher high condition that was true that may have stayed in the computer's memory, right? Because it shouldn't, because we're at least going to run one iteration, and this iteration will tell it whether or not we've got a new high or low. So we shouldn't have to do that, but there's a possibility. Like I said, best practice for me usually is to reset those conditions. HL is equal to false, and higher high is equal to false at the beginning of this run. But looking at it here, because it will run the condition at least once, we shouldn't have to do that. Now, if it only ran this, depending on your code, it may not run the condition before assessing if this is met or not, or like if you're using a while statement or something. And so you'll end up in a case where this stored variable here would have been stored to true, and then it comes back down, and then because it's stored to true, it'll just say, oh, it's true, don't worry about it, you know, don't even run that. And then now you got a true statement that is not actually true. So anyway, all right, so I'm gonna unmute this top one. So on the bars that have red that we found that were this program here did well, it worked properly on. Now we should also have a blue bar at the top of that same bar, unless I did something wrong. Okay. Looks like I got something off. You see there's a blue bar there, but it's not at the same bar as the red bar. All right, so counter 2 plus equal to 1. Counter 2 is equal to 0. We're going to reset it if we got a true condition. Higher high is equal to true and higher low is equal to true. Then begin plot 2, the high, blue, and then counter 2 is equal to 0. So we're resetting that counter, and then we're adding 1 to the counter on every bar. And if counter, oh, here we go. Counter here. I mean, it should be the same, but here I need to have counter 2. Need to have counter 2 here. And then let me just make sure that there's no issues here with me using the X. There shouldn't be, because this is a loop. And I did not use X up here. This is a loop. Okay. All right, there we go. All right, so this program is very simple. It's you know, is very straightforward. And these count if loops that are reserved words take a lot of this extra work and this extra thinking out of the equation. You know, having to go from 0 to 4. You need 5. You're looking back 5 bars, but you got to go 0 to 4. Like the way that loops work, and the way that you know, where you have to put your historical bars and you know, all this extra work here, it's already in this reserved word. Not to say that you shouldn't learn how to do it, you know, both ways, because that'll make you more, you know, make your programming more robust. But yeah, so there are both ways. There are the 2 ways to do it. I'm sure there's 40 other ways to do it. Hopefully this is one of the more succinct ways to do it, and you know, hopefully you learned something from this. But yeah, this is a pretty interesting code, so let's just look back and see if it does anything for anybody. Looks like it gets off somewhere. It's getting off in here. It's getting off. Why would it get off? All right, so here, looks like it's getting off when it's coming down. And here it's just going to be probably the difference of one number or something like that. But I don't know. I'm just curious. And then I'm going to hop off here because I'm just hanging on here because this is what I like to do for fun. But I know everybody doesn't like to examine code. All right. You know what I'm just going to let that come into effect. And you see that's what I was saying, that you need to reset. You need to allow this to reset instead of counting on it to just be okay through here. Once I allowed this the higher high and the higher low condition to be reset, as it should, now everything is the same. Spot on. Spot on. Perfect. I mean, literally perfect. But again, though, that's now I've been programming and just playing with code and stuff for quite a while, and I've had a lot of headaches and stuff behind figuring out programs, and to be able to work through all this here relatively quickly. I'll say it's relatively quickly. It's relatively quickly for me. But the experience that it took me to be able to put this code together, whole lot of hours. For you to be able to put this together, it wouldn't be that many. It wouldn't be as many hours as this, right? So like I said, this really lets on to a kind of a thorough understanding of how the loops and the counters and resetting everything works. But it didn't come without pain and tears. It didn't come without headaches and long hours, long weekends. But yeah, go with this option if you can. Go with this option if you can. That's it for today. I'm Eric. I'm out. Peace.